Bucks fans, welcome back to Bucks Latest presented by FanArch. I'm your host, Dean Simon. Please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on post notifications to stay up to date and in the know with all the latest Milwaukee Bucks updates. Alright, first thing on the docket today, we have a couple of guys for the Bucks that had some minor tweaks to their contracts as the offseason rolls along and prior to the 2025-26 season. First is the newly added Myles Turner, who originally it was reported that his contract, after coming over from the Pacers and the Bucks waiving Damian Lillard, that whole scenario, that he would be given a 4-year, $107 million deal, and that was recently upped to about 4 years, $108.9 million. It's again, a very minor tweak, but of course he has the 15% trade kicker in his deal as well, and a player option for the 2028-29 season that's going to be worth it's about $29.1 million, which, you know, you would think that he would lean into accepting once he gets to the age of, I think he's probably going to be around 33, 34 years old by that time. So it'll be very interesting to see with the Lillard stretch and waive and Myles Turner having the opportunity to accept a contract of that nature. What will they do with him down the line? Will this experiment be worth it? That's all. It remains to be seen. But Andre Jackson Jr. as well, who made a lot of strides this past year, he also got a little bit of an update, but it's different than what you may think. The fully guaranteed basis of his fully guaranteed contract, the date to make that contract fully guaranteed was pushed back a little while, which, though, in part, guaranteed him at least part of the deal to be guaranteed, which was $2.2 million. So that he's going to be getting $2.2 million off the bat, but the actual date to guarantee the entirety of the contract, which goes into 2026-27 as well, for around $2.4 million, I believe, before he's a restricted free agent in 2027, that will be guaranteed at a later date. And you could speculate that this is to give the Bucks a little bit more flexibility if they're going to try and make a couple more moves, try and find ways to fill out salary in some other places and scrounge together some money to make some other move. And it's perfectly reasonable as to why they would do that, because they still have a lot of holes on the roster, whether it's their backup point guard position or just their point guard position in general, whether they want to try and get another serviceable wing to complement Giannis. They definitely will have some options in free agency, though the market is getting thinner and thinner by the day. But if they are able to scrounge together a few bucks from the Andre Jackson decision to push that fully guaranteed date for the contract back by a little while, it could end up resulting in a pretty good thing for the Bucks, depending on who they try and target, whether it's a veteran guy, whether it's a young guy that's trying to prove himself, maybe try and stick on an NBA team, get himself a solidified spot in the rotation. Who knows? But Andre Jackson Jr.'s decision to agree to have that contract guaranteed at a later date could open things up for the Bucks moving forward. But on that same vein, with the Damian Lillard waive and stretch, of course that'll be giving Dame $22.5 million annually over the next 5 seasons. Not ideal if you're the Bucks that are trying to build a championship team, trying to convince Giannis to stay. It's definitely not ideal. But Bill Simmons of The Ringer recently came out. He's obviously a very notable and noteworthy voice in the NBA media sphere. He came out and he said that he just completely did not approve of any part of the move to waive and stretch Damian Lillard's contract. He said, and I quote, "I hated it. I don't understand it. I think it's a disaster. I didn't approve of any single aspect of it. Carrying the Lillard stretch thing for 5 years, idiotic. Doing it for Myles Turner, I have no idea why they would do that. I just don't understand why they wouldn't have just traded Giannis." And it's hard not to maybe not agree with him in this position, but to see where he's coming from, because again, as I stated before, when you're trying to build this championship contender around Giannis, trying to appease him, keep him happy, and keep him convinced that this team can compete for a championship in the next 3 to 5 years, having $22.5 million just come off of your books every single offseason when you're looking to retool and build further around Giannis, trying to get that difference maker, that game changer to complement Giannis, it's going to be a lot harder going forward for the next half decade. It may not feel like it right now because it's brand new. We don't really see the effects of it, unfurling right in front of our eyes. But having to pay Damian Lillard $22.5 million every summer is definitely going to impact the way that the Bucks front office moves in this era, this current, next 3 to 5 year era of Giannis, whether he decides to stick around for the long haul, whether he gets quickly frustrated again and actually requests a trade. A move like the Damian Lillard wave and stretch could immediately blow up in their faces because, again, that's just dead cap that you can't touch, that's going to a guy that's not playing for you, and by that 5th year that hasn't played for you in half a decade. So it's certainly easy to see where he's coming from with this. I still love the addition of Myles Turner. I think he's the perfect front court complement for Giannis, just that younger Brook Lopez and more athletic Brook Lopez. But man, it's really hard to see where this thing will go, even in the next 2 years, as they'll try and land more difference makers to complement Giannis to potentially get him back on that championship contention path. It's going to be hard, and I feel like it's going to be harder than anybody realizes, and the effects of this wave and stretch are going to be seen rather immediately going into the 2026 summer. The effects of it are going to be plainly visible, and you can't necessarily disagree with Bill Simmons here, but the best thing that you could do, or the best thing in this situation that you can do, is just have hope that they will be able to, again, scrounge together the kind of money that can land a real difference maker, a real contributor on a title winning team or a competitive team. But it's going to be, admittedly hard to do so, having to pay Damian Lillard that amount of money for not suiting up for your team. So we'll see where that goes, but it's kind of hard to look past that right now and be like, oh, everything's going to be fine, because really, who knows? Who knows if the front office knows if it's going to be fine, if Giannis knows or thinks it's going to be fine. A lot rests on, surprisingly enough, without him having to suit up, a lot rests on the shoulders of Damian Lillard, though it won't matter to him. He's just going to be getting his money and playing for a contender, most likely, in the coming months and the coming year. But anyways, with, again, now Damian Lillard out of the rotation, surprisingly enough, the Bucks will have to go into free agency further and try and reestablish them, like their guard rotation, specifically their point guard rotation. And you have Ryan Rollins coming back, you have KPJ coming back, but you still need that veteran presence in the locker room to try and lead these guys, to try and teach them the ways of just dealing with being on a team with a top 3 player in the NBA like Giannis. I guess dealing with the pressure that comes with being on a team that could be competitive going into next year, specifically, as it's going to be a gap year for a lot of the Eastern Conference and it's wide open. But a big target that the Bucks have been reported to be looking at is Malcolm Brogdon, who, of course, 2017 Rookie of the Year for the Bucks, 2023 Sixth Man of the Year for the Celtics. He's going to be heading into his 10th year at age 33, and of course, he came into the league as a more aged and seasoned rookie, very old, in fact. I think he was maybe about 23, 24, but he's still proving to be a pretty solid contributor to competitive teams, and he's done that throughout his career. Again, lastly, with the Celtics in 2023, as they were trying desperately to come back 3-0 against the Heat in the either the second round of the conference finals and get back to the finals, but that's a different point. Malcolm Brogdon can still offer a lot to the Milwaukee Bucks if he were to return. He shoots 38.8% on threes for his career, even with the fact that he only played about 24 games for the Washington Wizards this year. He was kind of toiling away and kind of sitting the season out. He was dealing with injuries, but he wanted to, I guess, keep his body right and train for the next year, because he figured that with free agency coming up that he wasn't going to be a part of the Wizards' plans going forward. So Malcolm Brogdon has been a solid shooter throughout his entire career. He's also put forth a solid 113 career defensive rating per 100 possessions, and he's just, again, a veteran presence that can orchestrate the offense, act as a key presence in the locker room for the team's younger guards, especially Ryan Rollins. And something that I would like to see if Brogdon were to be added by the Bucks, if he were to make his return, that he could take Rollins under his wing, because I think the great thing about Ryan Rollins is that he developed a lot as a pick and roll ball handler this past year and just developed his confidence on the offensive end in general. But what I loved about him the most was his defensive intensity and his intangibles and his pure athleticism for that side of the ball. Can move his feet and get in the passing lanes, his quick hands. Everything about him, he just has the makings of an elite perimeter defender. and he has all the makings of being a better player on both sides of the ball than Brogdon himself as he ages, as he develops even further over the next 2-3 years. And having Brogdon come in to kind of have him fill out his skill set with regard to running the offense and settling things down. Again, pick and roll ball handling, pick and roll playmaking, especially with a guy like Giannis, a roller of Giannis's caliber. Having Ryan Rollins being taken under the wing potentially of a guy like Malcolm Brogdon would be massive for the future of this team, and that's something that I really, really want to see going forward if Brogdon were to return to Milwaukee. And also, as another potential free agent candidate after a buyout, Kevin Love, formerly on the Miami Heat, was traded to the Utah Jazz in the big 3-team deal that saw Norman Powell go to the Heat, John Collins go to the Clippers, and Kevin Love will soon be bought out by the Utah Jazz. It's likely that he'll be mulling retirement as well as, mulling just coming to a buyout and going to another team in free agency to try and contribute in any way that he can to a competitive team. And he's a career 37, about three-point shooter. He was one of the most prolific big man three-point shooters of all time in his heyday. And he will be entering, obviously he's been in there for a while, but in the final stages of his Hall of Fame caliber career, he's 37 years old, will probably be 38 years old going into next year. And he could be another really useful veteran locker room presence with championship DNA for the young guys, and a decent floor spacing option for Giannis in really, really small, minuscule spurts, because we saw this past year for Miami that his legs weren't necessarily holding up, and he barely got on the court as it was. But if he were to play 5 to 7 minutes a game, might not be the worst option in terms of floor spacers, like floor stretching guys that you can get on the open market. And Kevin Love will be looking to compete. Maybe he'll view teaming up with Giannis in, again, a decidedly weak Eastern Conference to be one of his best options. He could, of course, go to Los Angeles, team up with LeBron again, go elsewhere. But Milwaukee could eventually be a pretty attractive option for a guy like Kevin Love if he were to spend the remaining year of his career or so with the team. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much again for watching another episode of Bucks Latest presented by FanArch. I've been Dean Simon. Make sure you tell me what you think in the comments, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications to stay up to date and in the know with all the latest Milwaukee Bucks updates. Thank you very much again for watching, and I'll see you in the next time. Go Bucks.